The film opens with a wonderfully crafted sequence featuring character actor Alice Drummond as a librarian at the New York Public Library. She goes through the stacks as bizarre phenomena happen around her. Books hover off of shelves, card catalogs jump out of their pullouts. Scared and panicked, she runs to get away, only to run into a blinding light. Roll title. We cut to Columbia University as Dr. Peter Venkman is testing for the effects of negative reinforcement on ESP ability. But as we soon see, he's trying to pick up one of the female students. Ironically, the guy he keeps shocking actually gets one of the cards correct, which kind of proves his theory, but now he's shocking the guy just for his own amusement. The guy leaves and Venkman moves in to woo the student. Fellow scientist Ray Stans barges in and drags Peter to the library after the discovery of a real ghost. When the pair arrive, they meet up with Dr. Egon Spengler, who is checking for paranormal readings. They eventually find the ghost that scared the librarian and are dumbfounded as to what to do next. Ray decides to wing it, only for the ghost to transform and frighten them off. Unfortunately, the trio are to be removed from the university premise by the dean. After the readings from the encounter from the library and being kicked out of Columbia, Peter Venkman gets the idea to start a private business to investigate and eliminate supernatural phenomena. Ray's family home is mortgaged to fund the research and development of equipment and for setting up shop in a firehouse. Shortly after opening, they get their first real customer, Dana Barrett. She came home from a grocery shopping and set her stuff on the counter. Suddenly, the eggs she bought were cooking by themselves, and she heard a voice say Zool coming from the refrigerator. She opens the fridge door to see what looked like a portal to another dimension. She slams the door shut and promptly leaves the apartment. With nowhere else to turn, she goes to the Ghostbusters. Peter returns with Dana to her apartment and begins to evaluate the situation. Dana notices his demeanor and behavior are far from scientific. He checks the kitchen where he finds the remnants of the eggs, but the fridge is normal. While assuring Dana she isn't crazy, Peter tries to move in on her. For now, he has some playful banter with her. With the petty cash run out, the team gets a call to the Sedgwick Hotel. They meet the hotel manager and they assure him that they will handle the situation without much trouble or disturbance to the hotel patrons. Well, they don't. They make a mess trying to apprehend the ghost we would know as Slimer. But the capture of the ghost in an upscale location nets them instant celebrity and more calls. The business becomes a huge success, so much that they hire a new employee, Winston Zedmore, but they also get the attention of the Environmental Protection Agency. Peter meets with an APA lawyer, Walter Peck. Peter's sarcastic attitude clashes with Peck's orderliness, and the situation becomes tense between the two. Peter meets back up with Dana with more information on Zool and related spirits. Peter offers to give her more information if she has dinner with him. She reluctantly agrees, only to be possessed by Zool before her date with Peter. Also possessed is Dana's neighbor, Louis Tully. Peter arrives and spends time with Dana while Louis is arrested and sent to the Ghostbusters firehouse where Egon looks him over. Peter returns to the firehouse only for Walter Peck from the EPA to shut down the firehouse storage facility. Despite the resistance, the containment unit is shut down and all hell literally breaks loose. Ghosts escape and wreak havoc on the populace. In the madness, the Ghostbusters are arrested. While in custody, the team manages to examine the blueprints to Dana's apartment. They realize the design of the building is to pull in paranormal entities. Egon believes something big is going to happen. Moments later, they are summoned to the mayor's office. While meeting with the mayor, they try to tell him the full gravity of the situation.
You could accept the fact that this city is headed for a disaster of biblical proportion.
What do you mean, biblical?
What he means is Old Testament, Mr.
Yes.
Mayor. Real wrath of God type stuff.
Exactly.
Fire and brimstone coming down from the skies. Rivers and seas boiling.
40 years of darkness, earthquakes, volcanoes.
The dead rising from the grave.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
Leave it to Peter to play on what matters the most to the mayor. Voters. Reluctantly, the mayor agrees to offer help to the Ghostbusters. With a police and military escort, the Ghostbusters arrive at Dana's apartment. The team climbs to the rooftop and see Dana and Louis morph into the hellhounds of Gozer. They confront Gozer, and after a short encounter, Gozer offers them a proposal. Choose the form of their destructor. In an attempt to clear their minds, Ray ends up summoning the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. In a desperate attempt to save the world, the team cross the streams to close the portal of Gozer. They manage to beat the odds of survival and succeed. In the end, everything seems to be right with the world. What can I say? I think this is a perfect film. It does so much without making it seem like it is. You have elements of horror and comedy that recall the Abbott and Costello Meet the Monster films of the 1940s. You have the sci-fi elements of the Nikola Tesla-inspired technology. There is a screwball romance between Peter and Dana. The climactic encounter with Gozer has the feel of a Western. The small team facing the insurmountable forces, a la the Wild Bunch or Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. The Stay Puft Marshmallow Man is a clever spoof on the kaiju films. Credit goes to director Ivan Reitman for juggling all of these elements and making it seem easier than it really was. It serves as a great science versus superstition allegory. When it comes to films that feature man versus monster, the man usually has to play by the rules of the monster. Torches and bonfires were used to fight against Frankenstein's monster. Imagine instead of using primitive tools, members of the mob against the Frankenstein monster use flamethrowers. Think of Godzilla in the original Gojira film. Godzilla was revered as a religious entity. He was defeated with scientific technology that was cutting edge for the time. With Ghostbusters, the heroes don't use spiritualistic or superstitious methods to defeat the monsters. They don't play on the terms of the enemy. What kills me is when the 2016 remake was coming out, people tried to reduce this film down to being a cult classic. I just laughed. Yeah, a cult classic that grossed around $221 million on a budget of $30 million. If you adjust for inflation and the box office comes close to $530 million, it was the #1 movie at the box office for 5 consecutive weeks. According to Box Office Mojo, 68 million tickets sold during the original theatrical run. Cult classic my ass. The script from beginning to end is direct and straightforward, but it left room for improvisation. Bill Murray, for all we know, just reacted to the scene based on Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis. But with the film's screenwriters working with Murray, they were able to channel his improv and use it to move the scene forward. Even minor characters got some great lines. Perfect example, the guy waiting for the elevator in the hotel lobby.
What are you supposed to be, some kind of a cosmonaut?
No, we're exterminators. Somebody saw a cockroach up on 12th.
That's gotta be some cockroach.
Bite your head off, man.
More amazing were the special effects for a film with the size of the budget. In 1984, the budget was $30 million. If you adjust for inflation, the budget comes to around $72 to $73 million. For all the effects and after inflation, this film does way more with less than we see in many contemporary blockbusters that have a budget 3 or even 4 times as much. Credit to the effects team under the supervision of Richard Edlund. From Slimer to the Librarian to Gozer to the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man to the zombie taxi driver, all classic characters that felt like they were real. The music score by Elmer Bernstein has a quirk about it. The main theme is a work of beauty. Besides playing up the humor, Bernstein managed to play up some of the horror and ominous atmosphere. The theme by Ray Parker Jr. is just as big as the movie itself. With Parker include the likes of James Newton Howard, Kenny Loggins, and Sheena Easton. Also on the soundtrack are the Busboys, Air Supply, and the Tramps. Performance-wise, everyone is on point. Bill Murray as Peter Venkman is an iconic figure in his own right. He has the most fun with the material. Both Aykroyd and Ramis provide the needed counterbalance. Aykroyd has a childlike enthusiasm as Ray stands. Ramis rattles off the science jargon with a straight face, which only manages to make him seem funnier. Ernie Hudson as Winston Zedmore was a tragic case of role reduction. When Hudson signed on, he was still under the impression his role was as big as it was when Eddie Murphy was still linked to Winston. Hudson as Zedmore could easily have been brought in sooner in the film, but hindsight is 20/20. Still, Hudson got his share of classic lines. His dialogue with Ray in Ecto-1, and then you also have these bits.
That's a big Twinkie. If there's a steady paycheck in it, I'll believe anything you say.
When someone asks you if you're a god, you say yes!
Sigourney Weaver as Dana Barrett might be a turnoff to some fans, considering she was kicking ass years earlier as Ellen Ripley in Alien. But this film opened up options to Weaver. She can work great as part of an ensemble, as well as taking charge of the screen when needed. When she plays possessed Dana, she is unhinged and is a sight to behold. Rick Moranis, Annie Potts, William Atherton, and David Margulis round out the supporting cast. Each have their moments. I'm not going to lie, I'm biased. I love this movie. It's my all-time favorite. This is one of the great comedy classics. It's a favorite among moviegoers and the critics. It has its place in popular culture.